Welcome to Skip Unleashed, brought to you by Underdog, home of the hottest NFL show out there right now, Arena Gridiron. But right here, right now, I'm about to tell you how and why my Dallas Cowboys will beat the Kansas City Chiefs on Thanksgiving afternoon in spite of three steamy subplots. Number one, Patrick Mahomes versus me. I'll tell you in a moment. Number two, Ceedee Lamb, yikes, versus Dak Prescott, with fresh reactions from both that came on Tuesday. And finally, number three, Coach Spags, defensive coordinator of the Kansas City Chiefs, versus Dak Prescott, dating back to that 2021, it was November 21st, 2021, nightmare game. Spags got Dak at Arrowhead that day. I'll get to that in just a moment. But first up, Patrick Mahomes versus me. I was on the show Undisputed on FS1 soon after that first Patrick Mahomes Super Bowl when he survived the fourth quarter because Jimmy G fell apart. And the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, and I was a little surprised that Patrick Mahomes had his people ask if he could join me on my show on Undisputed with Shannon Sharp. I thought, well, okay. I don't know what this is about. Well, it was about him versus me. He wanted to take a shot at me because I had taken a shot at him, several shots, over that incredible escape, that 3rd and 15 play, remember, mid-fourth quarter of that Super Bowl against the San Francisco 49ers. Mahomes had thrown a late third quarter interception, awful, an even worse early fourth quarter interception, still down 20-10. Mid fourth quarter, backed up, 3rd and forever, 15. Mahomes basically closes his eyes with a rusher in his face and heaves it into the deep left flat to Tyreek. Tyreek had to come back for it and basically wave for a fair catch. But it was complete, 35, 40 yards, out of the trap, won the game thanks to Jimmy Garoppolo. So Mahomes wanted to gloat about that, wanted to get even with me. That's fine, but he showed me a little something, or maybe he didn't. A little peek into his persona and personality. That's fine. So the steamy subplot for this Thursday got me thinking, well, he knows I'm a big Cowboy fan, world's #1 Cowboy fan. I'm objective. I can hate when it's time to hate, objectively. But I love him with all my heart and soul. Have since I was 10 years old. Patrick Mahomes knows this is the biggest NFL stage this side of a Super Bowl. This is Jerry World on Thanksgiving, sort of late day evening, depending on your time zone. This is Patrick Mahomes' chance to shut me up again and to, at Jerry World, show the world, watch this against the Dallas freaking Cowboys. Obviously, Mahomes has Texas roots. He spends time in Dallas and Fort Worth. The off seasons, trains there, hangs out there, basically has a second home there. Nothing would please him more than to play his best game of a year that hasn't featured great games, especially that one last Sunday against Indy. They went 1 for 6 in the red zone? Seriously? Come on, Patrick. But what better stage for Patrick, you can say I'm overestimating this, but to shut me up, shut Cowboy Nation up, just make a big national statement in Jerry's palace that Jerry ain't it. That Patrick Mahomes will try to do. Book it, mark it down. Which brings me to subplot number 2, Ceedee Lamb versus Dak. Ceedee now has 8 drops this year. That's second in the NFL. That's a career high for him. That's the most any Cowboy has had since Dez Bryant back in 2012. And I remind you, Ceedee has played only 7 of the 11 games. So he missed 4 games. I'm counting the Chicago game when he went down early because somehow Shoddy lined him up at running back and he immediately got hurt on some sweet play. Talk about dumb. But all of a sudden, as you well know, Dak versus Ceedee, or I should say Ceedee versus Dak, raised its ugly head again. You remember what happened in the 27-0 first half game, the last playoff game that we played at home against Green Bay. We were the 2 seed, they were the 7 seed. They're up 27-0 before halftime. In part because on our first series of the game, offensive series, on third and whatever it was, Dak didn't like the route that Ceedee ran, and Ceedee definitely didn't like the choice that Dak made on the throw. And they got after each other on the way off the field. And Ceedee was so pissed that he exited stage left and went clear down to the end of the bench and sat by himself, sulking, pouting, protesting. Shook me up. During the game, it shook me up because it was such a bad sign. Mike McCarthy actually had to leave his bump on a log sideline post and walk down to the end of the bench to try to talk Ceedee off the ledge and back into the game. And he never got back into the game, and we never got back into the game. And that night on social media, Ceedee's mom posted, "Dak ain't it." Ceedee clearly has never bought into Dak Prescott. He's never really believed in him when it mattered the most. And this year it mattered the most in the 2 Philadelphia games. And obviously to an extent in the Micah Green Bay game at home on that Sunday night. But especially within the division against the defending Super Bowl champs who owned us a year ago. Those were the 2 that really mattered. And the great painful irony for me in those 2 games is that Dak Prescott couldn't trust Ceedee Lamb, who I've called in the previous 3 years the best receiver in football, all around. Run it, run after catch. Wide out, slot, name it. He can do it better than anybody, all told. And yet he's had some history of dropping balls that has crescendoed this year. As you well know, 4 drops at Philly in that Thursday night opener that I thought heart and soul we could win and we should have won. But Ceedee dropped the game. Ceedee went, Mary had a little lamb. He was just a little lamb. And even littler against Philly this last Sunday back at home. But Dak at Philly had 2 drops and then 2 more drops in the last 3 minutes. Both of those on deep routes that could have gotten us the ball to the 25 and the 20. We were down 24-20. Would we have won the game? I believe we would have. But it took the heart and fight out of this team to watch their best player, the most dependable player, their biggest baller, drop the game. I still haven't gotten over it. And it's going to take me a while to get over what Dak did this previous Sunday, because he dropped one, then he dropped another, and finally he dropped what I thought was going to be the game-winning touchdown pass at 21-all. Dropped it, cold dropped it in the end zone. And then, I haven't spoken about this until now, because I wanted to make sure my ducks were in a row and I knew what I was talking about. As you well know, after he dropped that pass with Cooper DeJean closely guarding him, but it hit him right there, Ceedee jumped up and gestured over his head, pointing back at the end zone. At first, I thought he was saying that Cooper DeJean interfered. But now, after I did today's Arena Gridiron with Aqib Talib, Cody Kessler, TJ Ward, they all firmly believe that Ceedee was showing up Dak. That Ceedee was gesturing wildly over his shoulder, shifting the blame, saying, "Don't blame me, blame him, because that ball needs to be lofted to the pylon. Cody Kessler broke it down again on Arena Gridiron, and everyone agreed the better throw would have been to the pylon with some air underneath it so Ceedee could run to it and catch it this way. I got to tell you, if I'm going to proclaim him the best receiver in football, and Dak chooses to throw him one right here that hits him right here, I don't want to hear anything more. You flat dropped the game. Period. End of story. It's not your choice where the ball has to be delivered. If it gets delivered right there instead of up over here, even if you have Cooper DeJean draped all over you and it hits you right there and you're who I think you are, you catch it. Period. End of story. I don't want to hear another word. I don't want to see any of this. I don't want to hear Dak ain't it, because Ceedee, right now, you ain't it. So today, Ceedee spoke. This is Wednesday. And today, Wednesday, Dak spoke. And Ceedee went on and on about, yeah, I got to catch the fucking ball. Yeah, we get it. You better believe it. But Dak pleasantly surprised me because he didn't sidestep the issue. He just openly, strongly defended Ceedee Lamb, which a leader and quarterback should ahead of a game of this magnitude on Thanksgiving Day. But Dak said, hey, we know who he is. We know who he's been. That he always bounces back with a huge game after a bad one. That has been his MO. That has been his reputation. That well might become his legacy. Maybe even his Hall of Fame legacy. But you got to show me. You got to do it. And what Ceedee said today, Wednesday, is just a bunch of words. In the end, he said, I'm the only one guarding myself. He's saying nobody can guard me but me. That I can only stop myself, obviously, with my psyche. I do believe that in these biggest games, it has been a different set of pressure, a different pressure exerted on Ceedee Lamb by George Pickens. I haven't mentioned him yet, but obviously he has become the clear-cut number one receiver in Dallas, something I never thought would happen even after we stole him from the Pittsburgh Steelers for a third-round pick because Mike Tomlin said, I have seen enough, more trouble than worth. We'll never grow up. Good luck, Dallas. And I'm sure as we speak, Mike Tomlin is chuckling over the fact that the reports say that Ceedee Lamb was fined for missing the bus to the Las Vegas Raiders game. This is in Vegas, obviously, on the previous Monday night. And that he has been fined repeatedly through the year for being late to meetings. And somewhere Mike T is saying, told you. But George Pickens has been it when it mattered most. George Pickens has dropped a couple of balls himself, but not like Ceedee Lamb is dropping. And I believe that for the first time, Ceedee, for all his bravado, all of his swagger, is feeling a little threatened, a little different pressure because of the presence of number 3, George Pickens. A clear co-number 1. And Ceedee has welcomed him just as George Pickens has just been happy to be here. Happy to play alongside Ceedee. He hasn't ever tried to assert himself as I'm the man in Dallas. They seem to be very friendly. Supposedly they were out together in Las Vegas Sunday night ahead of the Monday night game. Red Rock Casino, drinks and dinner. That all sounds great to me. But I do believe that starting on opening Thursday night at Philadelphia, that Ceedee was feeling a little more pressure because of the presence of a guy that he could see on the opening day of camp is right there with him, if not a little better on the deep ball. There's no better deep ball catcher, snatcher than George Pickens. And it has become magical, number 4 throwing to number 3. Not 4 to 88, 4 to 3. started without Ceedee for those 4 games, and it just continued. George Pickens has caught 72% of his targets this year thrown by Dak Prescott. In Pittsburgh for those years, he caught no more than 48%. Would you believe that according to ESPN, that on Dak's throws to George Pickens this football season, just this season, that Dak's QBR has been a 99? That scale 0 to 100. That's virtually impossible. But that's what the number says, 99. It has become Dak to pick, which means you've had to pick your poison. And so far, up to this point, most teams have picked as their poison 88. We'll try to take 88 away, and then he starts taking himself away against Philadelphia. But obviously, George Pickens has seen far more single coverage this year than he ever saw as a Pittsburgh Steeler, and he has thrived. He has risen because of it. He has seized the opportunity in his contract year. He wants Ceedee money and more from Jerry Jones. And while his misbehavior off the field has continued, not at an alarming pace, but it has continued. We've seen a couple of flare-ups on the field where he just loses his emotions, let him run away. But in the end, he has saved the season. He has changed life in Dallas, Texas, not Ceedee Lamb this year. So now let me hark back to Dak Prescott against Coach Spags on November 21st of 2021. At Arrowhead, Dak Prescott was awful. He had a QBR, scale of 0 to 100, of 11 that day because he threw no touchdown passes, had 2 interceptions, and got stripped, sacked, lost a fumble, 3 turnovers, no touchdowns for Dak Prescott that day. We lost because of Dak Prescott and the offense, 19-9. We managed 3 field goals as then a number 1 offense. And I got to give Micah Parsons some props. Not the biggest fan, overhyped, overrated, but he came to play that day at Arrowhead. He actually had 4 solo tackles. That's got to be a record for him. He actually tackled somebody 4 times. And he had 2 sacks. And the defense played well enough holding Patrick Mahomes and company to 19 at home to win the game. But Dak struggled because Spags had his number. Spags has a lot of people's number. He had the Colts number at Arrowhead this past Sunday. The Colts came in as statistically the number 1 offense in pro football. Number 1. They did the Indianapolis Colts 10 first downs. It was 30-10 in first downs. Time of possession, think about this, nearly double. It was 43 minutes for Kansas City to only 25 minutes for Danny Dimes, Indiana Jones in that offense. 43-25. It was 91 plays to only 50 plays for the Colts, who, as you well know, had the ball 4 times at the end of the game and went 3 and out all 4 times, including once in overtime after they won the toss. Coach Spags said, Danny Dimes, you cannot have Jonathan Taylor today, and he took him away. It took all the way to the end of overtime, but the Chiefs prevailed because Kareem Hunt banged away 30 carries for 104 yards. Yeah, Patrick Mahomes pretty much sucked in the red zone, 1 of 6. But they came away with enough field goals to hang in and hang on. And once they shut down and shut out Danny Dimes in the last 4 possessions, that was that. That's what he does. You can't tell me that the Chiefs aren't spoiling to go shut down another number 1 offense. You know what their game plan will be. You know it and I know it. They are going to say to Dak Prescott on this Thursday, you cannot have George Pickens. Not today. We will not bless your table today with George Pickens. You're going to have Thanksgiving with no turkey, No turkey. You cannot eat your turkey today, Dak Prescott. You're going to have to be happy with a little dressing over here, a little cranberry sauce over here, maybe one bite of pumpkin pie over here. That's all you're going to get, but you're not going to get any turkey today. George Pickens will be triple covered if that's what it takes to take George Pickens away from Dak Prescott. You know and I know what's going to happen. It's 88 or bust, because they will say he's got the dropsy demons. He's thinking hard about it. He's getting butterfingered. He's getting a little nervous. He tries to do the big bravado swagger. But it's, they're saying, Coach Reed, Coach Spags, they're saying false bravado. He's scared to death. He's shrinking in the spotlight. Coach Schottenheimer today, Wednesday, tried to play a little gamesmanship game, a little spy versus spy, by saying, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. Plenty of balls are going to 88 Thursday afternoon. Well, they will go to 88 because he's going to be the one with the single coverage. They will dare Dak to throw it to 88. Just watch. Does he have the demons? We've seen demons in other sports, but we don't see demons so much in receivers. We see it in kickers. Once they get the demons deep in their psyche, they go south, they're gone. You got to cut bait, move on to the next one, as you well know. We've seen it in baseball. If you're a baseball fan, you know, if you go back a ways, Steve Sachs, Chuck Knoblauch, they just, as second baseman, they just lost the ability to make an accurate throw to first base. They just couldn't flip it to first, and sometimes they couldn't even flip it to the shortstop covering second for the double play. They just lost the ability to do that. Rick Ankiel, I go all the way back to Steve Blass, a Pirates pitcher, but they just lost it. They lost their ability to find home plate. Rick Ankiel was such a talent, so much power just as a hitter. They tried to turn him into an outfielder. He just, as a lefty, just couldn't find home plate anymore. Just couldn't release it correctly up here to make it go there. We've seen demons in golf, game that haunts me. I don't have these kind of demons, but we've seen what happens to David Duval, Ian Baker Finch. They just lose their ability to drive the ball in the fairway. They just can't find the fairway anymore, and you're done. You're shot. We've seen golfers just get the putting yips, but usually we don't see receivers have the yips. On Arena Gridiron, Aqib Talib argued with me and says that there's no such thing. He just, as Ceedee says, he tries to run before he catches. We see that all the time. And Ceedee is great after catch, great. But he's trying to live up to Pickens right now. New set of pressure he's never felt before. He was the man at Oklahoma. He was the man in Dallas until, what? George Pickens walked through that door? Whew. Okay, now to the game pick. I'm telling you right here, right now, the Philadelphia Eagles are better than the Kansas City Chiefs. They're a little better on defense, and when they need to be, they can be just as good on offense as we saw in the second half against the Rams, as we saw at Minnesota against a very good defense, as we saw in the first quarter and a couple of minutes against Dallas when they just said, watch this, and it was 21-0. But here's my point to you as I make this game pick for Thursday. The Dallas Cowboys played a shockingly sloppy football game and came back to win it. I don't have enough time. I don't want to waste your time going over the laundry list, the dirty laundry list of dumb blunders that we committed. Dak threw an interception into the end zone from the 2-yard line. That cost us 7 points. Ceedee dropped a touchdown pass that cost us 7 points because we tried to go for it on 4th and goal from the 1 and missed. Dak threw a horrible pass low to Jake Ferguson. Brandon Aubrey missed For him, a chip shot field goal of 51 yards. That cost us 3 more points. Little Turpin fumbled, he cost us. We missed twice on 4th downs that cost us. I could go on and on. We basically upchucked all over the carpet at home. Blew this, blew that, blew this, blew that. Shoddy didn't challenge the blocked punt, roughing the punter that was partially blocked. What? It was sloppy. Really, from start to finish, sloppy. Yet we rolled up almost 500 yards on the best defense in pro football. Don't sleep on the Eagles. They're still the best team in football. They still are. And we had nearly 500 yards because against the best defense in pro football, we showed that we have easily the most explosive offense, much more so than the Colts on explosiveness, much more so. They had us in stats. We had them in explosive plays, splash plays. Our revamped, revitalized defense, thanks to the Q factor, Quinnen, held the Eagles without a point on their last 8 possessions. That was 41 clock minutes with no points from the Philadelphia Eagles. Did they take their foot off the gas? Okay, maybe for a little while. Then they tromped the gas or tried to. And we were all over Jalen Hurts with a bona fide pass rush we have not had because Quinnen and Kenny Clark can crush the middle of the pocket and open freeways to the quarterback for a Clowney and a Fowler and an Ezra Waka and a Sam Williams, and I can go on and on. Even Osa got into the act with that late clutch sack that gave us the shot to win it. Yeah, we were down 21-0, but here's the truth about what happened this past Sunday. We should have beaten the Eagles by 21 points. That's the God's truth about what happened. We should have won that game by 21 points. That's how explosive we were and how suffocating we became on defense. Almost 500 yards against that. Are you kidding? The same defense that had just stifled Green Bay at Green Bay and stifled the Lions in Philadelphia. Just shut them down. Same defense, almost 500 yards did Dak and company put up. If we clean up our act going forward, which I believe we will, you better look out above, not below. You better look out above. Can we beat the Chiefs? Yes. The Lions, you better believe it, even at Detroit. The Vikings and Chargers at home, you better believe it. At Commanders, at Giants to end it, sure we can and sure we can. If we need them, we'll beat them. Would that get us in the playoffs if we win out? Probably. Possibly. All I know is we have a chance to get on a real roll here. A loud roll. A scary roll that will reverberate from sea to shining sea. America's team is back in the saddle in Dallas, Texas. Can we beat the Chiefs? We will. 27-25. They are averaging 25 points a game. 9th best. Not explosive the way they used to be when pre-dink and dunk Patrick. Patrick used to go bombs away. This is all dink and dunk and ball control, now featuring Kareem Hunt, banging away. Can we hold them to 25? Yes, we can. We'll hold them to their average. Our defense is that legit. We will hold Patrick to his average 25 points. A month ago in Buffalo, I watched a game, Chiefs at Bills, in which Josh Allen threw for 273 yards against that Kansas City defense. And Josh Allen doesn't have near the weapons that Dak Prescott has. Not near. The Bills won that game 28-21. Can we do that? Sure we can. Dak can do that. A lot of people think Dak is playing at the MVP level, even above Matthew Stafford. And it sure looked like it against Philadelphia. Dak is capable. We can win this game. I believe we will win this game 27-25 on, once again, one more time, a late field goal by the greatest kicker in the history of pro football, Brandon Aubrey. Dak must get his revenge on Coach Spags for what happened 4 years ago at Arrowhead, and Dak knows it, trust me. Ceedee Lamb must turn back into a lion, not a lamb, a lion, not a lamb. He must beat his demons, his George Pickens demons. And finally, Patrick Mahomes must not beat me. And he won't. Happy Thanksgiving.